You know, we are taught basically from childhood that the absolute most toxic people in the world are the selfish
Oh
ones.
yeah, 100%.
Right. Like we get this invisible moral scorecard the second we can understand language. If you do things for yourself, you lose points. But if you do things for others, you gain points.
Right, it's just ingrained in us.
Exactly. But what if that entire equation is completely backward? Like, what if the most manipulative, damaging people in your life are actually the ones who claim to be completely selfless?
I mean, that completely flips the foundational bedrock of how we define a good person. Because we equate selflessness with virtue and selfishness with vice so automatically that even, questioning it feels almost taboo.
Yeah, it feels wrong to even say it out loud.
Right. But the source material we're looking at today argues that mandated selflessness isn't just like a little white lie we tell ourselves. It is actually a mechanism of control that fundamentally breaks human relationships.
Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to today's deep dive. So, our mission today, for you listening, is to completely deconstruct this universally accepted moral concept. And we're doing this using a highly provocative 2010 essay.
Very provocative.
Yeah, it's by an author named Xu Feng, and it was translated by Treasure and edited by Cuff. And I just have to say, the title alone pulls absolutely no punches.
It really doesn't.
It's boldly titled, "The Most Selfish Are Those Who Live for Others."
And, the author builds this argument very methodically. To really understand how Shufang arrives at this conclusion that altruism is practically a crime, we kind of have to start where the essay starts.
Which isn't even with human morality, right?
Exactly. It doesn't start with human behavior at all. The text begins with the foundational structure of reality itself, like the cosmic order.
Right. The text mentions the intention of the greatest creator, and I want to clarify this right away. When the essay says greatest creator, are we talking about a specific religious deity here? Or is this more of a philosophical concept, like the universe's operating system or something?
Yeah, it functions much more like the latter. It's framed as an ultimate natural law or a cosmic intelligence that just designed the physics of existence.
Okay, makes sense.
And the primary law, according to the text, is that every single thing in every life form simply must maintain its individual character.
And the analogy Schweffen uses to explain this is just fascinating. He points to a single molecule.
Right, the molecule.
Yeah, a molecule absolutely has to maintain its structure. It literally has to be selfish with its atoms, like holding onto them really tightly.
Because if it doesn't.
Right. If molecules suddenly decided to be selfless and they just, let their atoms drift away to help out other elements, the entire universe would instantly regress into this random, chaotic soup.
Yeah, so from a purely physical standpoint, prioritizing your own structure is literally the only way anything exists. Maintaining your own boundary is the core mechanism of survival.
Wow.
Every life form has to struggle to maintain itself or it just goes extinct.
Yeah.
So the essay basically elevates this radical self-preservation to a cosmic duty.
Cosmic duty. That's heavy.
Yeah, the author states that every person must ensure their own survival first, or the devil wins.
The devil wins.
Right. Yielding your own preservation isn't noble in this view. It is yielding to chaos.
Okay, but here is where I really have to push back a bit, because the essay introduces a specific natural analogy that kind of tripped me up.
The peach tree.
Yes, the peach tree and the grapevine. So Shofang talks about how it is fundamentally wrong for a peach tree to live for the grapevine instead of just focusing on producing peaches.
Right.
But I mean, in nature, we see symbiosis all the time. Bees and flowers, clownfish and sea anemones. Isn't it kind of a beautiful thing for a strong tree to support a climbing vine?
I get that, but what's fascinating here is how the text views that symbiosis. Symbiosis in nature is actually just mutually beneficial selfishness.
Okay, wait, explain that.
Well, the bee isn't living for the flower, right?
Right.
The bee wants the nectar for itself. The pollen just happens to stick to it. And the text dissects your exact sentiment about the peach tree. From Griffing's perspective, if that peach tree consciously dedicates its energy to living for the vine, it stops producing peaches.
It abandons its own potential.
Exactly. It loses its peachness.
So by trying to be a trellis, it basically fails at being a tree.
Yeah, and that abandonment of its own nature is only the first failure. The second consequence is even more insidious, according to the text.
Which is what?
By deciding to live for the grapevine, the peach tree is actually rudely interfering with the nature and the freedom of the vine itself.
Oh, wow.
It's inserting its own structure into the vine's existence. The text argues that to be human, you must first cherish yourself and promote your own distinct personality. To abandon your purpose just to prop up someone else, it disrupts the natural growth of both parties.
Okay, so if the natural law of the universe dictates that every living thing must prioritize its own existence, then the essay takes a very sharp, like very aggressive turn.
It really does.
It concludes that anyone walking around claiming to be acting purely for the benefit of others is inherently lying.
Right. Because true selflessness would violate the basic physics of reality.
Yeah.
So the claim of selflessness just becomes a mask. It conceals true underlying motivations.
And Shuifeng applies this rule to literally everyone. I mean, starting with the highest echelons of power.
Right, the emperors.
Yeah, the text claims there has never been an emperor who truly lived for the people in his jurisdiction, which, honestly, most of us wouldn't argue with that. Politicians having self-serving agendas is a pretty accepted idea.
Sure.
But then the text takes aim at the most untouchable historical figures imaginable. It asks if Christ Jesus or the Buddha Sakyamuni lived for others.
And Shuifeng's answer is an emphatic, no, not at all.
Right, which is wild to read.
To understand that claim, we have to look at the mechanism of those historical narratives through Shuifeng's lens.
Yeah.
Take the Buddha, for example. Prince Siddhartha leaving his palace to meditate under the Bodhi tree. That was an intensely personal quest. He was seeking to liberate himself from the cycle of suffering and rebirth.
So his enlightenment was a personal achievement, first and foremost.
Exactly. And even with Jesus, the narrative is about fulfilling a specific divine mandate from his Father. It was his personal destiny to fulfill.
So the argument is that even these massive, world-changing spiritual acts were driven by ultimate personal imperatives, not just a generic desire to serve the guy next door.
Yeah.
But then the text brings this concept right into our living rooms. And this is the one that's really going to sting for a lot of people listening.
Yeah, the parenting one.
The essay asks, is there a parent who lives for their children? No, none. I mean, wait, parents don't live for their kids. That is a really tough pill to swallow for a lot of people listening right now who sacrifice daily for their families.
It is harsh. But that psychological angle is crucial to the entire philosophy. The argument isn't denying the physical reality of, say, a parent working 3 jobs or sacrificing their sleep.
Right, the actions are real.
Yes, but the essay is interrogating the core motivation behind the action. The text asserts that people who loudly claim to live for others are actually false, crafty, and they lack a sense of independence.
So a parent saying something like, I gave up my dreams for you, isn't an act of unconditional love. It's basically an emotional invoice.
An emotional invoice, yes. That's a great way to put it. They are creating a debt the child never actually consented to.
Wow.
The claim of sacrifice is used as a tool to impose one's will. By establishing that massive debt, the parent creates a dynamic of control. The text argues that deceitful people use the guise of living for others to interfere in someone else's life while, looking like a saint.
That is just wow. So the sacrifice is real, but the motivation is about self-gratification or control, or maybe just fulfilling a biological drive to see your own genetics succeed.
Exactly.
And I do have to give the author credit here. Shuifeng doesn't just sit on a high horse and point fingers at parents and emperors. He turns this exact same brutal lens right on himself.
He really does. He uses his own life's work as the ultimate case study.
Yeah, he writes that as the guide of Lifechanyuan, which, for context, is the specific community and philosophical movement he founded. He keeps himself incredibly busy trying to create this ideal Lifechanyuan era.
Right.
But he explicitly writes, do I do it for others? Not at all. I do this for my own achievement. He completely admits that his massive community-building utopian project is strictly for his own fulfillment.
Because he believes that honesty about our self-interest is the only truthful path, and that honesty forms the bridge to the most aggressive part of his argument.
Which is?
Well, if claiming to live for others is a biological and psychological lie, Shuifeng escalates the rhetoric. He stops calling these people liars and starts calling them criminals.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Calling a seemingly selfless person a criminal against society feels wild.
Okay.
But the text lays out 3 specific reasons why this behavior is so damaging.
Right.
And the first one ties perfectly into that emotional invoice we just talked about.
Exactly. The first crime is that these people burden the spirits and souls of others. When someone constantly sacrifices for you without you asking, they force you into a lifelong debt of gratitude.
You just feel this persistent, heavy obligation.
Yeah, an obligation to serve them, sometimes for your entire life, just to balance the scales of an unrequested favor.
It makes me think of the classic helicopter parent, or even just that one friend with a massive martyr complex.
Oh, totally.
They organize your life, they buy you expensive things you don't even need, they rush in to solve problems you are perfectly capable of solving yourself.
Right, and on the surface, they look like the best friend ever.
But underneath, they are subtly demanding that you constantly cater to their emotional needs because of, quote unquote, all they've done for you.
That unearned guilt is the actual weapon, which leads directly to the author's second major accusation,
Okay.
interfering with freedom. When you are buried under someone else's selfless acts, it becomes impossible for your own nature to bloom.
Because you're too busy managing them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You spend all your energy managing their feelings, validating their sacrifices, and processing your own guilt. You aren't free to just exist as yourself.
So if you are drowning people in emotional debt and suffocating their freedom to just be themselves, society at large must become entirely transactional and fake. Is that the third issue?
Yeah.
That it breaks down the fundamental truth of how we interact.
You hit the nail on the head. The text frames it as disturbing the program running with Tao.
Wait, Tao. Are we talking about traditional Taoism here? Or is Suvang, redefining the concept of cosmic order for his own philosophy? What does a program running with Tao actually look like in everyday life?
Well, in this context, Tao represents the natural, unforced flow of the universe. It's like the honest operating system of reality.
Okay.
If you introduce code based on lies, like fake altruism, the system crashes. It creates social disorder because hypocrisy becomes the normalized currency.
Nobody is honest about what they actually want.
Exactly. Nobody is honest about what they need. Everyone is pretending to be a peach tree, living for a grapevine, while secretly resenting the vine and holding it back.
Man, that paints a remarkably bleak picture of human interaction. Just the idea that we are all walking around secretly resentful of the people we claim to be helping.
It is bleak. But Su Feng introduces a highly practical concept here to explain why this happens. We can think of it as the empty cup analogy.
Oh, I like that.
He asks this question. If you do not know who you are, if you are an imperfect person filled with jealousy, ego, resentment, complaints, or anger, what can you possibly bring to others?
You cannot pour from an empty cup. If your own life is a mess, your help is just going to spread that mess around.
Precisely. The text really challenges the listener. How can you live for others if you cannot even smooth away your own trouble and pain?
You can't.
Right. Anything you try to do for someone else will be tainted by your unresolved ego. You end up projecting your own chaos onto them and calling it assistance.
So only someone who has taken full, selfish responsibility for their own nature can interact with others without burdening them.
Yes, that is the core idea.
The philosophy is incredibly tight on paper. Be honest about your self-interest, take care of your own cup first, stop burdening people with unasked for sacrifices. But theory is easy.
Yeah,
The
right.
real question is whether a society built entirely on radical self-interest actually works, or if it just instantly descends into total anarchy. If no one is looking out for anyone else, doesn't the world just burn down?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author anticipates that exact counter-argument. Facts, as the text notes, speak louder than words. Shuifeng points to a real-world, localized experiment to prove the mechanics of this philosophy.
Right, the second home life pattern.
Yes, founded by his Lifechanyuan community. This isn't just a thought experiment. For over 9 years, nearly 100 people lived together in this commune, functioning under strict rules of radical self-interest.
9 years with 100 people, that's a solid sample size.
It is. And the foundational standards they live by were explicitly countercultural. The two main rules were, do not bother with others or regard other people's business, and I will not help unless help is asked for.
Let's really look at the mechanics of that second rule. I will not help unless help is asked for.
It's tough to imagine.
It really is. Imagine what your workplace or your household would look like if everyone strictly adopted that single rule today. You see a coworker visibly struggling to carry a heavy box of files? Under this rule, you do not rush over to grab the other end.
Right. You just watch them.
You just watch them. You wait until they use their words and say, "Can you help me lift this?"
It feels incredibly awkward to imagine because we are deeply socialized to anticipate needs.
Yeah.
We view proactive helping as like basic politeness.
But think about how often proactive helping goes wrong.
Oh, all the time.
Right. What if someone in this commune got sick? Instead of 5 people rushing into their room with different kinds of soup they don't want, forcing the sick person to smile and say thank you while they feel terrible, the sick person just rests. Yeah.
And when they want soup, they ask for exactly the soup they want.
The friction of unsolicited help is completely removed. And according to the text, the result of this 9-year experiment wasn't a cold, isolated, chaotic environment.
What was it?
The author reports that everything was in perfect order. Everyone was happy and free. The text literally describes the community as a peaceful and sociable paradise.
Because everyone is finally just responsible for themselves, it kills the guessing game of human needs.
Exactly. You never have to wonder if someone is secretly mad that they did the dishes. Because if they didn't want to do them, they wouldn't have done them, or they would have explicitly asked for help.
The burden of unearned gratitude disappears. The resentment of unappreciated sacrifice vanishes.
It's very clean. And the essay wraps up this entire exploration with a definitive, bold summary. People who want to confer benefit on society should live for themselves first. And people who want to commit sin live for others. Wow. So what does this all mean for you listening right now? We've taken quite a journey today, from the structure of a single molecule through the true motivations of historical icons, all the way down to a 100-person commune that unlearned basic human politeness to find peace.
It's a lot to process.
It is. The language in these sources is intense, calling proactive helpers liars and criminals, but the core takeaway really challenges us to ruthlessly interrogate our own daily behaviors.
Absolutely.
The next time you feel the urge to rush in and save a friend or do a favor that wasn't requested, pause. Ask yourself a really uncomfortable question. Are you actually trying to help them bloom into their own nature? Or are you acting out of your own ego, your own need to feel useful, and accidentally handing them an emotional invoice they never asked for?
This raises an important question when we zoom out from our personal lives.
What do you mean?
Well, the implications of this text raise a massive structural question. If true harmony is only achieved through radical self-interest and only offering help when it is explicitly requested, how does that reframe our entire modern world?
Oh, like on a macro level.
Yes. Think about systemic proactive altruism. Our welfare programs, our legal systems, corporate charity structures, or even international aid.
Right.
These are massive global systems built entirely on the premise that it is our moral duty to intervene and help those who haven't necessarily asked for it.
Yeah, that's the whole foundation of society.
But if Xue Feng's philosophy holds true, and proactive altruism actually disrupts the natural order and suffocates freedom, what would a functioning society look like if we dismantled all of those safety nets and rebuilt our institutions purely on the principle of honest individual self-interest?
That fundamentally changes how you look at that invisible moral scorecard we are all handed at birth. Maybe the points we thought we were scoring for being selfless were actually deductions all along. Something to mull over the next time you decide to play the hero.